Every team, every topic, everywhere. This is Believe.
Welcome to Orioles on the Verge. This is Zach Spedden, joined as always by Bob Phelan and Nick Stevens. And we have a lot to get to in this episode of Orioles on the Verge as we break down our breakout candidates in the Orioles farm system for the 2025 season. This is a show that we do every year around this time of year, and it's a lot of fun because we can highlight some of the under-the-radar names or some of the recent additions to the Orioles farm system that we think are poised to take big steps forward in the coming season. And as we do every year, we're each going to highlight one position player and one pitcher that we think could be breakout candidates in 2025. And that is coming up on this episode of Orioles on the Verge, which is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting in 2025. Whether you're a seasoned fan or a first-time bettor, BetOnline is your ultimate game day companion. With the largest selection of odds on everything from NBA and college basketball to the NHL and UFC, BetOnline continues to be your number one betting source. From every three-pointer to hat trick, BetOnline has you covered with odds, stats, and more for every game, every play, and every win. BetOnline, the game starts here. And as I mentioned earlier, this is one of our favorite episodes to do each year. We get a chance to highlight some of the breakout candidates in the Orioles farm system for the coming season. And we each pick one position player and one pitcher. And I thought I would start off this episode by looking back to last year to remind our listeners, or maybe let them know in case they didn't hear last year's episode, of the players that we picked. Bob pretty much won the show last year by picking Jordan Sanchez as his breakout position player and Cameron Weston as his breakout pitcher. Nick had Jake Cunningham and Trace Bright in those categories respectively, while I had Matthew Etzel and Juan Rojas. So we're all going to try to get a little bit closer to what Bob managed to do last year on this episode. And before we dive in, Bob, do you want to take a moment, because I just saw you fist pumping there. Do you want to take a moment to do a victory lap?
Yeah, because it's probably the last one I get for a long time. Got pretty lucky there. No. Yeah, when you sent that to us in the group channel in our Discord server, that was definitely I didn't remember who I picked, and I was pleasantly surprised to see that. Yeah, okay, nailed that one. That's rare. I'll take it. I'll see if I can go back-to-back years with some good picks here. I feel like I might have even taken Daryl Hernaiz, although that was kind of a trendy pick at that time to break out the year that he did. But yeah, take all the victory laps when I can get them, because in this game, they're tough to come by.
And Matthew Etzel did help land us Zach Eflin, so that's a little bump for the Matthew Etzel pick.
A little golf clap.
I got nothing. My picks were trash, so I'll just sit this one out. I'll see y'all next week.
Well, no, Nick, we're going to put you right on the hot seat here, because you're going to start us off this year, because your hitter is a guy that more national outlets are talking about. One national outlet's a little bit more aggressive than the others in talking about him, but a young position player with really good batted ball data. And then your pitcher had a nice return from the IL in the second half last year after some early season struggles.
Yeah, we'll talk about the hitter first, and Thomas Sosa. Give our thoughts there. He's like 6'3", 6'4", probably. He's up to 220 pounds now. Again, I think we talked about this last week or recently, but the player page says 160. He's up to 220 now. He just turned 20 years old in January, and he's already reached high A. So he's going to spend the entire year as a 20-year-old with a chance to finish the year in Double A if things go right. He's only got 19 games under his belt at the high A level. They were not very good, but if he's a breakout guy this season, as I'm predicting here, he could finish with, I think, a pretty strong cup of coffee in Double A at least. But you look back at his numbers, and man, he flashed the raw power in the DSL back in 2022, but he had a 68 WRC plus and stole 0 bases. When I went back and looked at that, that was shocking. Then he goes to the FCL in 2023. He walked a lot more, struck out a lot less, nearly doubled his extra base hit total, and pretty much the same number of at-bats, but he still wasn't stealing bases. The WRC plus was about double at 128, so much better. And last year, he starts in Delmarva. he was league average, like 108 WRC plus, maintained the high walk rate. Yes, he saw a spike in strikeouts, a lot of doubles, but just 4 home runs again. So still none of that turning that raw power into game power. But the Orioles clearly felt like he was ready for the next challenge because they bumped him up to high A at 19, where he walked a lot. He was 8 for 9 in solo base attempts to give him 30 on the year after stealing like 5 those first 2 years. So don't know where the speed came from, but it was there now. So I don't know. I think after that experience in high A and getting his feet wet and being, again, he's a left-handed power hitter in Delmarva, as we've talked about before. It is one of the toughest ballparks in all minor league baseball for lefties. So I think that's a factor when you look at Sosa's low A, specifically the power numbers. He's got 2 plus tools, the power and his outfield arm. He's got average speed. He could probably be an average hit tool. I think if you project out, Thomas Sosa is a guy who is a major league corner outfielder who, he's going to strike out a lot, but he's going to have an above average walk rate. He's going to have enough speed to keep guys honest on defense and hit 20 plus home runs a year. But like, he's been incredibly raw these last couple of years. We've talked about a lot of times since it's not like Michel Deson raw, where it's like you watch him in Delmarva and you're like, he's way overmatched, but like you can see a little bit of talent there. No, Thomas Sosa, like, this was real talent. It was just, he's got to put it all together. When you got 90th percentile exit velo of 107 miles per hour, and you had multiple shots at plus 110 plus miles per hour, like, I'm buying that. The pieces are all there. Can he start to put them all together? Because physically he's matured. Has the rest of him matured? And can he start putting it all together this year? And if he does, that power, I think, could really surge this year.
Yeah, I love this pick, and I love the video he put out the past week where, yeah, clearly he's hit the weight room the past year or so, especially this offseason, up to 220. Like, the power could be unbelievable for this guy. And yeah, I think it's kind of encouraging. We know when we talked to Anthony Villa last year that he called him or he thinks he's Ken Griffey Jr. come again. That confidence, and clearly I think he's a motivated guy. Reminds me of, like, obviously it's completely different players and personalities, but Gunnar Henderson just never satisfied, right? I feel like Thomas Sosa could be a similar type of guy where he's confident, but he's also motivated, which again speaks to why they promoted him to high A despite not necessarily earning it. I think they wanted to push him, give him some failure, give him something to strive for. And yeah, I like his odds of breaking out this year big time. I think, yeah, hits the ball hard. If he can just make a minor adjustment or two and get that ball in the air a little bit more, I think people could see his name flying up lists starting this year.
I looked this up with Sosa, and I had a feeling that this number was going to be low. But did you guys realize that he only had 13 plate appearances all last season against pitchers younger than him? I was surprised by that number just because we know that at Delmarva there's a possibility he could be facing younger pitchers, maybe once a week or at least a couple of times a month. But only 13 plate appearances all last season combined between the two levels that he had against younger pitchers. So that's a reminder of how young he was and why he looked so raw at points last year. I feel like that if you want to look for a development path for Sosa to get better this year, it's actually in his teammate for most of last year, Aaron Estrada. Estrada had issues hitting the ball on the ground too much in the FCL in 2023. Last year, the line drive, the fly ball rate went up, and we started to see the power come in a little bit more. Now, take the physical difference in the two. Thomas Sosa is much larger than Aaron Estrada, clearly has a lot more raw power, and that difference could be really magnified. So the Orioles have shown that they can do this before with younger hitters who have the raw tools, but when they make contact or just putting the ball on the ground too much. Sosa's exit velocities were really good last year, so it's not like he can't dial up a baseball. He just has to launch it more, and I think if he's able to do that, he's going to take a huge step forward. And I'll just put my normal reminder out there for people now. Don't look at the home run numbers in Aberdeen. because they're going to be pretty misleading. So look at the WRC plus, look at the extra base hit total. That's all going to tell you what kind of power he's developing and how that could project to the next level more than the raw home run power will. And as a lefty, Sosa's had to face that challenge now twice because, as Nick pointed out, and it's true, Delmarva is a tough place to hit for left-handed hitters. So the home run power not being there yet doesn't really concern me. I think it's just a matter of him hitting the ball in the air a little bit more.
Agreed. I'm excited to see what Sosa can bring this year. He's hyping it up to be a big year. Would expect nothing less, but we'll see if he lives up to this hype. My pitcher, do the background here, just because as we talk about, as I'm trying to step up and make better picks this year for this show, I'm going to pick the pitcher with shoulder issues. So here we go. But Levi Wells is my pick for pitcher. There are red flags here. He's the 41st ranked prospect in our system, probably because of some of these red flags that I'm going to talk about and the belief that, I don't know what you guys think, but if he were to develop into a big leaguer, it's probably as a reliever. But he started his career at Texas Tech as a reliever, where he had more walks and strikeouts, and then transferred to Texas State, where he earned a rotation spot. He dominated in the Cape Cod League. He's dominated Stanford in the NCAA tournament. He has these big, huge wins when he was in college, worked his way up. He was a top 100 overall draft prospect. I think MLB Pipeline and Prospects Live both had him ranked in the top 100. Baseball America was the low guys on him at 111. The Orioles got him at 118 in the 2023 draft. So all this belief that if he were to make it, it's probably as a reliever because he's got the head whack, it's his high effort delivery, but it was getting better. It was quieting down. This is a guy with major league starter traits. He skips, like we've seen a lot with these college arms. He skipped the FCL. He skipped Delmarva after not pitching in 2023 after the draft. So he starts his pro career in high A. His first 5 starts, 11 innings in 5 starts, not good. A 13.91 ERA, a 2.45 WHIP, a 370 average against. Month 2, he gets 5 more starts. This is a lot better. 19 innings this time, a 3.72 ERA, a 1.14 WHIP, 192 average against, 29% strikeout rate, and he got the walk rate down to 9%. It was 17% the previous month. So much better month 2, but then he regressed again in June and then goes on the IL. I'm assuming some of that regression was due to trying to fight through a shoulder issue. When they finally just put him on the IL, he missed about 5 weeks. I assumed we heard someone had posted that it was shoulder. Someone had reported that it was shoulder. I assumed he was going to be done for the year, and so much for that. But he came back 5 weeks later, and they kept him on 1-2 inning outings to start. But he ended up pitching 19 innings after returning from injury. 20 strikeouts, just 4 walks. So much better into the year there. Overall, it was a 6.71 ERA, but a 4.09 FIP and a 3.78 xFIP, a 48% ground ball rate. I think if you look at the baseball card stats, you miss a lot here with Levi Wells. This is a guy who also Baseball America had him a 116 stuff plus, which was 3rd best for all pitchers in minor league baseball his age and one of the higher marks in all of minor league baseball. So if the surgery, why do I keep saying surgery? He did not have surgery. He's going to have surgery now. After the shoulder injury, if he's got that behind him, I do think he has some of the best pure stuff in the system. I think there's a reason to be optimistic about 2025, as long as that injury issue is behind him.
Yeah, I like this pick a lot. He started the game that I was the guest announcer for Aberdeen, and from the press box, his stuff was electric that night, and he was fantastic for the first, I can't remember if it was 2 or 3 innings, and it kind of started to unravel. A little bit of bad luck and all that got mixed in there. But yeah, I think a lot of his season was bad luck. Obviously the injury. I still really, really love this stuff. I'm going to go to a friend of the show, John Mioli's 31 through 40 prospect ranking here, a little piece that came out for Baseball America recently. He says, well, sits 96 and 98 with multiple plus secondaries an above average command on his best days. Agree with that. Like I said, the stuff was electric when I watched him live. And yeah, if he can just hone it in, get a little bit luckier, be a little more consistent, a little more around the zone. Yeah, I think this is a very good choice to break out. I don't know if he starts back at Aberdeen, most likely, I'm assuming, because we have a million pitchers, but would not be surprised if he's the guy this year that's like, where was this last year? But it was there. It just was kind of hiding under the surface.
Yeah, I've kind of evolved on Wells. Early last year, I was looking at him and I was looking at the rest of that Aberdeen staff with Jackson Baumeister, Moises Chase, Edgar Portes, some pitchers that were making gradual improvements with their command, and it didn't seem like it was clicking for Wells. So early in the year, I was looking at him thinking, hey, he's probably going to end up a reliever, and even if that's the path for him, I'm not sold just because there's outings in there where not only is he walking guys, but he's not really putting away hitters. He's not really generating the swings and misses that you feel like he should. But then after the injury, he was a lot better. And it's to the point now where even if he does develop into a reliever, I'm okay with that because I do think that there's electric stuff there. And if that's, how he's going to be able to throw strikes consistently, and that's going to be what keeps him on the mound, keeps him healthy, and keeps him effective, I'm fine with that because I think he has the stuff to be an excellent reliever. I suspect, and I kind of hope in some ways that the Orioles give it another go in the rotation, even if that means starting him back in Aberdeen. But he did come a long way in that respect as the season went on, not only with throwing strikes more consistently, but being able to put away hitters.
Yeah, worst case, even if it takes a couple more seasons, we've seen with Cade Stroud this past year, who added to the 40-man. If he eventually has to go pure reliever, and even then, if they love the stuff and he just not quite getting the command, not quite getting everything together, if you have the stuff, they're going to keep giving you chances because that's what this organization values, and he's got it in spades.
Go to Bob now. He's going to try to go for a repeat.
Yeah, it's a tough call, but I do think this is the year where you're going to see multiple international players break out in a semi-big way. I mean, I don't know about the next Basayo, but we already talked about Thomas Sosa. The guy I'm going to talk about didn't get as much money to sign with the Orioles, but Ellis Cuevas, another big left-handed hitter with some big pop in his bat, if he can get it into the game level. Let me go back to John Mioli real quick. To get things started, he has him at number 40 on his list. I think he was a little bit higher on ours. But he says between the FCL and Loe Delmarva, Cuevas had a 791 OPS in 2024, and one of his 8 home runs was the longest hit by anyone in the Orioles organization, majors or minors, at 451 feet. Cuevas can profile as a prototypical corner bat, but does so with a combination of power and plate discipline that the Orioles value. Yeah, if you can hit the ball 451 feet, you got some power. You got some raw power there. And he certainly does. He's had great walk rates throughout his professional career. Came in 2022, put up a 125 WRC plus in the DSL, then a 128 WRC plus back in the DSL at age 18 in 2023. And then last year, 123 WRC plus hit FCL, and then a 127 WRC plus in low A. So pretty consistently, he's been 25% or so better than league average every stop he's been at. Like I said, he didn't get that big signing bonus, but he's just performed time in and time out. And I think they even want to try to get him some time in center field. So maybe not even a prototypical corner guy right away. Give him a shot to play some center in Delmarva this year. And if he just continues to do what he's done his entire professional career, again in 2025, starting in Delmarva, getting to high A Aberdeen by the end of the year, then he'll certainly be in my top 20 or so.
Yeah, just again, not saying these guys are going to all become future major leaguers, but Cuevas was a guy I think we were kind of tipped off to right at the end of the FCL season by someone within the organization. And there's just certain people when they say certain things, especially privately about certain players, you listen. And so that's what tipped it off for me with Cuevas about, okay, what is it about this guy? And the power spike was huge, but also what I really like, the strikeout rate has dipped lower and lower and lower each year as well. Yes, he keeps repeating these levels, but when he's still like a year and a half younger than his peers, when he got to, I think, the FCL this year, or Delmarva, one of the two, I don't know. He's still younger than a lot of his peers at each level he's been at, because when the Orioles signed him, he was so young. But when you look back, the swinging strike rate in 2022 in the DSL was above 30%. I know Enrique Bradfield, he's on like the opposite end of that spectrum. He's like 4 something percent. Yeah. So like you can see the difference there. Above 30% again in 2023, but in 2024, last year, he cut that to 12.5%. Again, still being younger than most of his peers at the level. The contact rate's gone from 45% to 55% to 74.5%. So those are signs right there. He's going to be a prominent bat, I think, in Delmarva's lineup, and very much worth a pretty hard look this year.
Yeah, I meant to note that actually the strikeout rate, he was right around 26% in 2022, 19% in 2023, and then 12.8% in the FCL last year, up 22.2% with full season Delmarva, 81 plate appearances, but a 17.3% walk rate. So, yeah, certainly seeing massive improvements in that regard, which is what probably kept guys like Anderson De Los Santos, who we've predicted in the past to break out, from doing so, is that they didn't improve in that regard.
Yeah, absolutely. The walk to strikeout numbers really are key for us when we're trying to track these younger players, and Cuevas has certainly stood out in that area. I had a chance to see him play late last season at Delmarva, and everything with the bat, it was hard to verify that in one game. But when you look at the data, it's all really encouraging. What jumped out at me when I saw him, though, is he can fly. His speed is really good, and it's the kind of speed that not only allows him to be successful in the base paths, he's had very good stolen base numbers throughout his career, but he can cover a lot of ground in the
47
outfield.
Stolen bases last year.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, big time stolen base numbers, and he can really cover some ground in the outfield. Playing center field and having speed don't always go hand in hand. I've seen plenty of guys that can run well who didn't play center field particularly well, so it's not a lock that Cuevas is going to stick there. But if he can add that to his skill set, at least be an occasional center fielder, you're looking at a player that's got a really interesting super utility profile, and someone who, if the bat continues on the path that it's on, development-wise, is going to get consistent playing time at the high levels.
Shoot, I think I don't have his plate page pulled up. I think last year he might have played primarily first base even.
Let me check. I have it right here.
Probably because of like who else is on that FCL roster, but if my man's getting work at first base as well, like it's just another tool in his toolbox.
12 games at first base, 3 games at third base, 4 games in left field, 20 games in center field, and 40 games in right field. So just get that bat on the field however you can. Oh, sorry. And then my pitcher is going to be this year's Jackson Ballmeister, who hopefully won't be traded unless it's for someone of Zach Eflin's caliber or better. It's the Orioles' first pitcher selected in the 2024 draft, Chase Ossopp. I believe it was the 3rd round. Was it? 4th round.
Sounds right.
It was early. It was pretty early for the Orioles. Let's be honest. And he's a big kid, like 6'2", 235 pounds. He can really. He's got the body type that Mike Elias and company seem to like. He also has the stat line that they seem to like from a. Thank you, Vivek, 4th round. Appreciate that. He also had the stat line that they seem to like from college players, bad ones, because they are stuff over results, and so far so good in that regard. But back to John Mioli, and his piece, he has him 31, and he says Alsop was up to 100 miles per hour as a reliever in college, and it was right here. As a fourth rounder, was the Orioles' highest drafted pitcher in 2024. He sits in the mid-90s and is entering his pro debut with a 5-pitch mix, highlighted by his plus slider, improving cutter, splitter, and curveball. And we know the Orioles were at a sweeper. They'll tighten up things there. So, yeah, I just feel like the Orioles don't pop on a pitcher that early unless they are very confident in their ability to, at least stuff-wise, have him compete at the upper ends of the draft class that they selected. And as I'm rambling, I just would also just like to say that it would be cool if he made it, because we could call him Chase Awesome, and that's awesome.
He also lost his starting rotation job when he was at Auburn his final year. He did get it back, but he did lose it at one point. And for me, it's just like, like Vivek said, last 4 starts of college, it clicked. It's with Alsop, it is very typical of a lot of the college arms they're drafting in this range. Yeah, the college numbers suck. Yeah, they may not. It's like they seem like they haven't really put it all together in college for whatever reason. But it's all these individual pieces that are really stand out and fantastic with these arms. And it's just a matter of getting in the right organization, finding the right formula to put these pieces together. And if they're able to do that, then you've got something special here with Chase Alsop. And this is a guy who we're like, yeah, okay, cool. He's got the velo. He's got a couple of pitches. He's a big body arm. This is interesting pick, of course, but then it's not us that's feeding this excitement. This is like Baseball America's article after article after article after article this offseason about Chase Alsop. They are the ones driving this Chase Alsop hype train. So I'm getting excited because I want to see what this does. Yeah, I didn't have Chase Alsop. You had Chase Alsop in the top 50. I did someone else for Auburn. I feel like recently we've got a ton of Auburn players in this organization.
Trace Bright, right?
And guys like Trace Bright, yeah.
He was another guy that Baseball America was like hyping up before he ever made his debut. So yeah,
some of these Auburn kids. Gunner was going to go to Auburn, but got him from there. They picked up a UDFA from Auburn. I already forgot his name. I mentioned it in the top 50 episode. But yeah, a lot of Auburn flavor here in this organization. Yeah, I'm excited to see if the pieces click. And if they don't, like this, even with all the hype from outside sources, even with us passing that along, and now we're starting to get excited about Alsop, even if it doesn't click, this is a guy who he wasn't a finished product when he was in college. He had a lot of issues there when he was in college, and he's probably going to start the year in high A. That's a big jump for these college kids. And so if it doesn't click immediately, look at what Jackson Baumeister is doing. The Rays are getting a lot of credit for Jackson Baumeister, which is kind of annoying because, yes, the numbers after the trade were unbelievable, but Baumeister was already trending in that direction under the Orioles tutelage before the trade. Like he was getting better and better. I remember saying, like, we need to really sit down and watch a Jackson Baumeister outing and compare what he looked like at the beginning of the year to like 2 days before he got traded. I never got that opportunity to sit down and really watch Baumeister because they moved on from him. But like he was making those adjustments already in this organization. It just took some time. Philly's also getting a lot of credit for Moises Chase. The Orioles built Moises Chase. Let's be real there. But these college arms, like, give him some time. If it's not selling in immediately, they're probably tinkering with a lot of things with Alsop to try to get all these pieces to work together. I'm super intrigued. And if he takes off from the beginning, if it's more of a Zach Fruit start to the year, I think you need to watch out at that point.
Yeah, I was reading the new Baseball Prospectus handbook. They had Jackson Baumeister ranked number 60, I believe, in their top 100 for all of Major League Baseball. He had a 44-5 strikeout to walk ratio after we traded him to the Rays. Yeah, very frustrating.
Yeah, that's a good point, Nick. I think if Alsop does get off to a little bit of a slow start, especially the walk numbers at the end of April aren't very good, don't take that as an indictment on him as a pitcher because sometimes it takes time. And everything that we see in the data with Alsop is really positive. And one thing that has kind of jumped out at me as I've started to dig into him a little bit more, Walks per 9 is not the best number to use for his command, but I think it's an interesting snapshot. 49 in the third innings pitched at Auburn in 2023. Also walked 6 batters per 9 innings. Last year in 62 in the third innings, that number was down to 2.3. And yeah, he had some ups and downs. As Nick touched on, he briefly lost his rotation spot, but got it back at the end of the year. And that was when he kicked into another gear. It was in the final 4 starts during their season. And I have to think that the Orioles saw that. They saw that he was finishing his college career strong, and they believed there was something there that they could work with. Now, because he didn't pitch last summer, we don't know yet what kind of adjustments the Orioles are making with him. And we don't know that they're even going to pay off right away, but there's reason to believe they can be made. So even if Alsop gets off to a little bit of a slow start at Aberdeen, which is where we believe he's going to start based on the Orioles' track record of what they do with college pitchers, don't think that that's going to be the case the whole time. Eventually, something might click.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, monetary magicians. These are things people say about drivers who switch their car insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Because Progressive offers discounts for paying in full, owning a home, and more. Plus, you can count on their great customer service to help you when you need it, so your dollar goes a long way. Visit Progressive.com to see if you could save on car insurance. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states or situations.
I'll go with my guys now, and I'm going to go with a hitter who I think was on his way to being a breakout candidate before last year, and that is Tavian Josenberger. Josenberger was a pick by the Orioles in the 2023 draft. Out of Arkansas, he had transferred there from Kansas and had put up good power numbers in his final season in college. Started last year at Aberdeen, and he was one of those guys for most of the year that if you only looked at the batting average, you would think that he was not having a good season. But the whole time he was in Aberdeen, he maintained generally solid walk numbers. Strikeout rate was low. Generally had a above average WRC plus. And then right before he got promoted, something really clicked for him. And he was great in Aberdeen over the final month and a half. And he got off to a hot start in Bowie, but unfortunately only appeared in a handful of games before missing the rest of the year with an injury. There's a couple of things about Josenberger that stand out immediately, regardless of whether you want to look at the good or the bad of his stat line. First of all, he's really fast, and he's a really efficient base stealer. He was 50 for 56 last year in stolen base attempts. And in a farm system that did not have Enrique Bradfield Jr., he might be in the conversation for having the best run tool. The other thing is his versatility. He can play second, he can play center field, he can play the corner outfield spots, he can also bounce over to the left side of the infield on an emergency basis. So he brings that versatility, he brings that speed, and then you factor in the the high walk rates and the low strikeout rates, and you've got an interesting mix. Where I really think Josenberger can take a step forward this year, if he is healthy, is with the power. And it's not just because he's going to be moving to a hitter-friendly ballpark in Bowie, but it's because when you look at the batted ball data that we do have from last year, Josenberger does pull the ball a lot. His pull percentage last year was 48%. He paired that with a line drive rate of above 20% and a fly ball rate above 45%. So a left-handed hitter who can pull the ball consistently and can drive it in the air. We don't know what his exit velocities look like exactly. I suspect we're going to learn a little bit more this year. But I think if he's just able to hit the ball hard, you're going to start to see that power develop. And with the kind of profile he has, he doesn't need to hit 20 to 25 home runs a year to be valuable. Just drive the ball consistently. And if you end up with home run totals in the low double digits and you pair that with a 12% walk rate, a 19% strikeout rate, and being able to play 3 or 4 different positions on the field, you're going to have a pretty nice major league career. So Josenberger, as I said, I think he was already trending that way before the injury last year, but I really think a full healthy season is going to solidify Josenberger as at worst a top 25 prospect in the system, maybe even more.
I love this pick. I really love this pick. I think he pretty much already broke out. It's just that, look, he had a 750 OPS, a 117 WRC plus in his time at Aberdeen. That's really good as is with the 230 batting average. He had a 14% walk rate, 16.3% strikeout rate, 175 isolated ISO. That's not bad at all, especially for a player like him who stole 45 bases in 79 games for Aberdeen, 14 doubles, 5 triples, 9 home runs. The number that stands out to me, luck, BABIP, 257 BABIP for a switch hitter with his speed and the way he hits the ball. That's ridiculous. That just says bad luck. Let's just say that BABIP is closer to 290, 300, which is about average. His batting average goes up to like 260 or so. All the other numbers come up, and we're raving about this guy. And then, in his early look at AA, he performed very admirably in a very short amount of time. So, I love this pick for sure.
Yeah, don't have to convince me about Tavian Josenberger. I go back to his college days. He started at Kansas. He had, I think, 2 or 3 home runs. He had 3 home runs in his first 2 years at Kansas. He wasn't even the highly touted prospect in that infield. It was Maui Ahuna, who was drafted around after him by the Giants in that same draft class. But Josenberger transfers to Arkansas and hit 10 home runs his final year at Arkansas after hitting 3 in his first 2 years at Kansas. I think there's double-digit home run potential in the bat at the next level. And plus, it's going to be a 3-horse race between Josenberger, Bradfield, and Griff O'Farrell, who has the lowest, I think, amount of swing and miss in their game as well. Yeah, you look at the final few weeks when he was at Aberdeen, he was OPS in like over 1,000. It might have been over 1,100, close to 1,100 before he got promoted to AA. Unfortunately, the injury cut that short, but yeah, I think he's going to be a big-time bat in Bowie's lineup to start the year. And I'm interested to see how they divvy up his playing time defensively. Does he see a lot of time in the outfield? Because he's second base, center field guy, so I'm anxious to see how much he plays each of those positions. But yeah, Josenberger, this could be a sneaky little pick down here, I think.
I'll go to my pitcher now, and this is a guy who still has a lot of raw traits, but he seems to be putting them together, and we saw that a little bit in the second half last year at Delmarva, and that's Iber Cartaya. Now, if you read our Substack, you know that Nick wrote recently in his predictions article that if you don't know Iber Cartaya yet, you will by the end of the season. And the reason that I think Nick feels that way, and I know I certainly feel that way, is how far Cartaya came along during the 2024 season. He had pitched the last 2 years at Dominican Summer League and the Florida Complex League, not putting up very good numbers. But then all of a sudden, repeats the FCL last year, and the strikeout numbers go up, the ERA comes down, and while the walk rate was a little bit high, when you factor it in with everything else that he was doing on the mound, it was pretty encouraging. The Orioles could have just decided that they had seen enough and they would shut him down for the year, get him ready to go to Delmarva for a full season this year. Instead, they let him go up to Delmarva to end last season. He got 24 innings there, a 1.11 ERA with a 29% strikeout rate, and a career-best 10% walk rate. And what he has on the mound is a fastball that right now can hit the mid-90s somewhat consistently with what looks like maybe 2 or 3 secondary offerings that we don't have a lot of data on just yet, but you can see good movement on those pitches. The key thing for him is going to be hitting the zone consistently, because even in some of his best starts at Delmarva last year, he was getting away with hitters chasing on pitches, and that's not going to be sustainable as you move up. But I think if he can attack the zone more consistently this year, he's going to cruise through low A, get an opportunity to get to Aberdeen, and even if the walk numbers aren't quite there for him, the strikeout numbers, I suspect, are going to look pretty good. And the other thing is that he's very, very projectable. Nick has described him as a baby giraffe who looks like he's learning how to walk. I think he's listed at, I'm going to pull up the numbers here. I know he's listed about 6'5", maybe 170 or so pounds. So definitely a lot of room to fill out and get stronger. But the skill set here for a 22-year-old, 6'5", 165 pounds. So even lighter than I thought from the height weight listing. At 22 years old, finally seems to be coming into his own. I think that there is a lot to build on and a lot of reasons to be excited about what he can do this year.
I love Cartaya. It's just when you watch Delmarva on a regular basis, you see so many arms come through who clearly just have no idea where the ball is going when they throw it. And they're throwers. They're not pitchers. They fail the eye test pretty much immediately. Michael Ferret, for example, he was an easy one. Watched his first start in Delmarva, and I'm pretty sure I remember coming right on the show saying, like, he is head and shoulders above his peers at that level. You can just see we see now what he's been able to turn into. With Cartaya, when I watched his first outing in Delmarva, I had no preconceived ideas about Cartaya or any biases because I had no clue who this kid was. Because like Zach mentioned, they were awful numbers in the DSL. He's a little bit older, but these awful numbers at the lower levels of the minor leagues, I'm thinking, all right, you're bringing him up to Delmarva because you need somebody to get shelled for some innings just to get through a game at this level. He's going to get cut by the end of the year. I'm watching him pitch, and I'm like, no, there's something here. The frame, it's like you mentioned, it's 6'5". It's a big frame. And again, I'm not a pitching expert, but it just seemed like this is something you can clean up and really get a lot more out of that big frame. Yes, he's 22, but there's a lot of like physical projection left as well. He's got a deep pitch mix. He's hitting the mid 90s. You mentioned the strikeout rate and walk numbers just exploding in the right directions last year. Something clicked there with him. I'm pretty stoked to see what he can do this year, to see if he can continue to improve. This is another guy too. Again, interacting with some of the lower level coaches more over the last couple of years. I will say Cartaya is a guy who he has a lot of fans among the coaching staff in the lower levels of the minor leagues. And so that's something else that is okay. Pay attention to that when I see that. So I'm anxious to see what he can do this year.
Yeah, I'm a fan as well. Not surprisingly, the thing with pitchers is it's very, very rare that they just hit the system as a teenager, early 20s, and just boom, fly through the system. Pitching, it's a long development. We've even seen it at the major league level. A guy who's one of the best, if not the best pitching prospect in baseball, Grayson Rodriguez, he's got growing pains. You got to learn how to pitch at every single stop, every level. Kyle Bradish, same thing. So not concerned about him being 22 and just hitting low A. Like if he's got the stuff, he's got the stuff. It's just a matter of time to see if he can put it together, get him that command in, which is just what makes Keeler Morphe's rise all the more impressive, by the way. But I am very interested to see how Cartaya, did he hit the weight room put some meat on his bones, get a little more solid base down and just continue to harness the stuff. And whether he's Rule 5 eligible at the end of 2025. We know he's not going to be added to the 40-man roster no matter what happens in 2025, but maybe he works his way into a secondary piece in a big trade at the deadline, or who knows? I mean, he's either going to continue to develop as an Oriole or help them out by getting on other team's radar and being a part of a trade. So, yeah, I'm a fan of Cartaya as well.
Even the Rule 5 draft for those lower level guys like that, I have zero concern at all, just because like you can keep him in Delmarva for a big chunk of this year justifiably, and then have him in the year in Aberdeen. You keep AJ Preller's dirty hands away, like he'll be okay. Obviously, like no one's going to select him in the Rule 5 draft. You can keep him in Aberdeen to close out the year where he's not even sniffing AA Bowie yet, and you can push that off for another year. Again, the Juan Nunez thing was a shocker. So I have no issues with, especially some of these guys like Cartaya, and I don't have the list here to see who else. I'm sure there are other guys going to be in that same boat, but yeah, you can keep these guys hidden. And then next year, he's got all year. You start him in AA in 2026. He's in AAA by the end of the year. And if you really like him at that point, yeah, you could trade him this year if you want to, or you can trade him next year, or you've pushed it off another year. Maybe he could be a reliever in 2026. Yeah, I'm to the 40-man roster, but that's way, way, way down the road for Cartaya. When you're watching Delmarva and he's pitching, take a gander. You might like what you see.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to be looking forward to watching him and watching all of the players we highlighted tonight during the 2025 minor league season, which is now less than 2 months away. Pitchers and catchers report to big league camp this week. Orioles spring training games are just around the corner. And we're going to be talking about that next week with our spring training predictions. So that's another annual show of ours that we love to do every year. So you don't want to miss that. That will be back. That will be next Monday. In the meantime, you can check us out on our many social media channels, including Facebook, Instagram, Threads, X, TikTok, YouTube, Blue Sky, and Twitch. We're also over at Substack, OriolesOnTheVerge.substack.com. And while you're browsing around the internet, be sure to head over to Patreon to sign up to become a member of our Patreon community today. You can join at the $3, $5, and $10 levels and have access to our top 50 prospects countdown. As we wind that down, not only will you get the final episodes of that countdown, but you can go back and listen to previous episodes in the top 50 and look forward to bonus coverage throughout the regular season. From Bob Phil and Nick Stevens, this is Zach Spedden. You've been listening to Orioles on the Verge, presented by Bet Online and part of the Believe Podcast Network.